Ding, the Lord system is bound. Identity fusion, Rainer Moreland age, 16 politics, 50, full value 100, health 95 current territory building, none current reputation, none current subordinates, none current title, none current army, 60 armed soldiers, 20 archers current territory, Fort Moreland current family, Moreland distribute novice benefits. Imperial Standard Gold Coin times 5 the Scarlet Griffin Rider times 5 High Quality Cold Zone Wheat Seeds times 10 bags High Quality War Horse times 5 Hydraulic Mill Drawing times 1 Dear Lord, I wish you a happy game. If you have any doubts, please ask the system tutorial. There was chaos in Li Dian's mind, and the sudden coolness regained his sanity and opened his heavy eyelids. He rubbed his still aching head, and still muttered a little dazedly, strange dream. Why does the head hurt so much? The physical discomfort made him very puzzled. Could it be that labor and management died suddenly after playing games? As an experienced game player, he often stays up late to play games without sleep. Although he is very afraid of sudden death, he still can't resist the temptation of games. He half squinted his eyes and walked to the door, without even noticing that the environment around him had completely changed. Crack! With a sound, a sour voice sounded, and Li Dian suddenly got goosebumps on his face. The eyes that hadn't seen the sun for a long time were very uncomfortable with the light. He squinted his eyes and slowly adjusted to the outside sun. Although he has not fully opened his eyes yet, everything in front of him is obviously not what he is familiar with. The corridor full of debris did not appear in front of him. He seems to be on a stone roof at this time, bright and beautiful. The sunlight shone on him like this. In the distance, there are patches of light yellow with some green wheat, but more of them are patches of grass. Occasionally, some cows wander along the river, leaving a pile of excrement to stroll around leisurely. Not far away, a group of white sheep walked by, seemingly about 100, wandering around, driven by the shepherd. And at this moment, the two men in armor suddenly turned their heads, watching him wake up, and said with joy, "Thank you, Father, praise Father, Lord Baron, you finally woke up. That group should go. The lawbreakers in hell, sooner or later they will be hanged on the gallows by Lord Baron." Looking at these two people, Li Dian had a familiar feeling inexplicably. "Lad, Bell." "Yes, my lord, I will pass on the news that you woke up to everyone, so that they will also pray to the Father for you to wake up." After said, the two rushed away from the rooftop. Li Dian looked at the two figures who left, and apart from the pain in the head, fragments of scattered memories gradually emerged in his mind. Rainer Moreland. He muttered, could it be? Labor and capital are passing through. Then, there was a burst of ecstasy in his heart. As a steel straight man in game house, he likes to play games very much. Unlike others, he is very obsessed with stand-alone games. Medieval series, Roman series, Age of Empires series, Fortress series, Attila series, horseback riding and hack and slash, Heavenly Salvation, and even niche society games such as Kingdoms are all his obsessive objects. As an orphan, he doesn't usually have much social interaction. Except for the rent, water, and electricity, his salary is all spent on games. In addition, he has read countless novels. It can be said that he is extremely eager to travel through this kind of thing. Combining all the signs, Li Dian, no, Rainer is quite sure that he has passed through. He doesn't have any nostalgia for the world he once was, but he looks forward to living here very much. In other words, the sound just now was not an illusion. Rainer's heart throbbed, and if that's not an illusion, it means that he really has the golden finger of the protagonist in the novel. With such a heaven-defying golden finger, can I still be ordinary? Rainer thought. System. He called out tentatively. If this thing really exists, then he is simply invincible. Yes, dear Lord, please give your order. A burst of mechanical, no emotional mechanical, and electronic sounds sounded in Lena's mind. His hand hit the hard stone wall, and he bit his teeth to prevent him from screaming. The joy in his heart almost broke through the sky. "Why am I here?" Resisting the urge to cheer, Liner asked. He still wanted to understand why he was here. "A multidimensional explosion caused the game data in your computer to be realized, that is, I appeared. My mission is to help you become a powerful lord in this world and create your own glory. What can I do now?" Rainer nodded, and then asked excitedly. "Report to Lord, you now have the above items to be realized." Liner looked at the string of text and pictures in front of him, as if a raging fire was burning in his heart. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, and said to the system in a trembling voice, 3 days later, 5 Scarlet Griffin riders have been revealed. As the Lord, 5 Scarlet Griffin knights will join you for a reasonable reason in 3 days. The system still replied with the kind of non-motional mechanical electronic sound. Wait. Rainer suddenly reacted. He seemed to be in a coma, and it was caused by human factors. Is there anything hidden in it that he doesn't know? And just at this moment, a rush of footsteps sounded, and several people ran onto the rooftop. The man at the front is a man in regular clothes, who looks a little similar to Lena's appearance, and should be some of his relatives. Was followed by a teenager about 13 or 14 years old, a little girl 7 or 8 years old, and several saber knights in light armor. "Praise the Father, little Rainer, you finally wake up," the woman said excitedly. From the memory of her predecessor, Rainer knew that this was the mother of this body. "Very good. Just wake up. I will definitely take the army to wipe out the robbers." The middle-aged man came to Lena and patted Lena's shoulder with his generous palm. Speaking in an annoyed tone, then he reduced his emotions and began to carefully examine this nephew who had been traveling since the age of 12 and now has grown to be about the same height as him. As the brother of Lena's father, he took over part of the territory after his father died unexpectedly and assisted Lena's mother in managing the territory. He is loyal to Lena's family. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has some impressions of this upright uncle in his memory, so he didn't reject the uncle who had almost never met before him. "Brother Rainer. You finally woke up. I thought something happened to you." The young boy behind kept wiping his tears and sobbing, showing that he has a very good feeling for this body. "Ha! Of course I will be fine." Rainer touched the back of his head, a little bit painful where he was still sleeping. "It's you, little Wenda. Have you tried hard to practice swordsmanship during my absence in the past few years?" "Of course. I will become a qualified knight sooner or later." He stopped sobbing, and said in a slightly sobbing but very strong tone. As soon as he finished speaking, the knights next to him began to laugh. Lena's mother also burst into tears, rubbing his little head and said, "Little Wend will be your brother's best knight, right? This is Rainer's biological brother, the biological brother of his father and mother and his compatriot." At this time, the little girl next to her was looking timidly at everything in front of her. Upon seeing this, Lena endured the feeling of powerlessness on her body, supported her body, got out of the bed and walked to the girl's side, knelt down and touched her head, and said softly, "This is our little Fiona, remember brother Lena." Lena's memory became clearer. This year, Lena was 16 years old and left home at the age of 12. This means that he has been outside for 4 years. At that time, Fiona was only 4 years old, and it was hard to be kind to him. Fiona looked at the strange and familiar person in front of her, nodded cautiously, and said gruffly, "Remember." Listening to Fiona's immature voice, Liner couldn't help but laughed. Although the body's main consciousness was still that of Li Dian from the Celestial Dynasty, his heart was still influenced by Liner himself to a certain extent. Therefore, he has an inexplicable sense of belonging to this series of relatives. On the same day, Rainer's uncle Cod Morland held a banquet in Rainer's name after obtaining Rainer's consent. Also invited 10 of his knights, 6 trainee knights working in the castle, and some squires and nobles to participate in this banquet. The ingredients for the banquet are not rich, which is not much different from Rainer's impression. Some bird meat, dried meat, eggs, cabbage, boiled apples and the like are only. Is accompanied by some ale floating with some sediment and exuding a strange taste. These, under the slightly dim light, have made up an aristocratic dinner. It's very salty, so salty, Rainer is a little helpless facing the food on the table. In this era, all kinds of materials are quite scarce, but it can't be the case when the banquet is held. The salt is missing the old hats. The nobles thought you were treating them harshly. Rainer has been mentally prepared for this. After all, he has come into contact with a lot of medieval literature and games, knowing that the Middle Ages is an era of low productivity and scarce materials. He didn't have any requirements for food, and he was completely adapted to all this. Let's raise a glass to celebrate my dear nephew's return from travel and awakening from a coma. This is the blessing of the Father. May my nephew grow stronger and grow into a man who can bear the burden of a baron. Rainer smiled and raised the wine glass, and got up from the chair, as did the others in the room. Sir Cod looked at his nephew with a smile on his face. He knows his responsibilities and status with ethics engraved in his heart. After drunk the wine in the glass, Rainer smiled and said to the speaker, "Thank you for your blessing, my dearest uncle. What you said reminds me of the indoctrination of my father. When he just woke up, he told me about your past as usual. I believe that Brother Lombard and I will be the same as you." As he said, he glanced at Lombard next to him. He was one of several knights who rushed to the rooftop with Lena's parents today. Together with his previous memories, his impression of Lombard was very three-dimensional. That night, through this dinner, the knights pledged allegiance to Lena, the new baron of the Morland family, and transferred their loyalty from Lena's father, whom he had never met, to him. "Since you swear allegiance to me, then in the same way, I will protect your legal rights, and you will have the greatest rights in your beneficiaries until the day when you no longer serve as my knights or die." The dinner is over. All the families in this territory that are connected with the Morland family are surprised at the return of the new baron of the Morland family and his knowledge, humility, and gentleness. As Lena, who has played countless conspiracy games, of course he knows how important temperament is to a king, so he deliberately forged these perfect qualities. Although Rainer is only a baron now, but what can be done, he has the help of the Lord system, and has the knowledge that has surpassed the age for thousands of years. A few days later, Rainer sorted out the memory of the former owner of the body, and had a general understanding of the environment he was in. The territory of the Merland family is located in the northern border of the Redka Empire. It is out of the empire's territory tens of kilometers to the north. Wherever it is very cold, only the clad barbarian survives, relying on hunting prey in the boreal forests and plains. Pregnancy. The northern border is different. The distance of less than 100 kilometers is as if it is separated by one latitude, and there are two completely different environments. Although it is also very cold here, the Merland family has 4 distinct seasons. Although the land is not very fertile, it is also a rare and good farmland. As a unified empire, the Redka Empire is quite strong. Every year, it organizes eastward campaigns and sweeps to prevent those extremely vicious nomads from looting westward. At the same time, dozens of kingdoms on the mainland and many duchy countries are also very much under the pressure of the empire. There will be fewer wars. Since 20 years ago, the mainland has ushered in a long period of peace. The territory of the Merland family can be said to be Yumapingchuan, and the hills in the surrounding territories are also very few and pitiful. It must be said that this is a good place for cavalry combat. The forest in the southwest of the territory is really an eye-catcher. In theory, the entire 10-kilometer forest is owned by the Merland family, but because the forest is too dense, it is very difficult to establish a rule here. Even if the former Baron Cod allowed thousands of residents on the territory to cut down trees and hunt in it every year, he still could not effectively convert the forest into arable farmland. The principle of northern snow is that there are 5 or 6 months of heavy snow every year, and the short growth cycle is unable to cultivate any crops. This also makes the clad barbarian very poor and has to invade the northern frontiers of the empire to obtain some food for the winter and supplies. After the banquet, Rainer lay on the soft bed in his bedroom, excitedly opened the system store and prepared to think about his future path. He opened the shop interface, which had everything in it, which dazzled Rainer. Milan full-body plate armor drawings with hydraulic stamping plate armor technology, value, 30,000 meritorious service hybrid high-yield rice 80,000 meritorious service. All of this made Rainer's greedy eyes red. These are all big killers in this era, but looking at the high price, Rainer knew that he had no chance with these things. There are 3 ways to obtain merits. One is gold coin exchange. 1 gold coin can be exchanged for a little merit. The second is war. The army under your command can get a little merit by killing 1 person. In addition, every victory of a war will have a certain amount of merit. Score, an evenly score can also get merit points. After searching for a solution to no avail, Rainer was also very helpless, and he had no choice. After all, although the system was powerful, it was not omnipotent. The next morning, the sun shone on Lena's eyelids through the window of the castle. He opened his eyes groggy, and after lying down for a while, he got up from his bed covered with several layers of linen and wool. Reading www.yuyugonshu.com. And at this moment, Sir Lanny, the old butler in the castle, appeared in Rainer's room. Honorable Lord Lena, there are 5 heavily armed men claiming to be Scarlet Griffin riders outside the castle and say they want to see you. They say they want to lay down their lives and their loyalty to you. Rainer knew that it was the manifested Scarlet Griffin rider who had come under his command. He immediately got dressed and walked out of the castle. The Scarlet Griffin Knight is among the top-class exchangeable units in the system. It takes 20 points of merit to be able to exchange for 1 person. In terms of overall attributes, no heavy cavalry can compete with compared with. After all, in the introduction of units, the Scarlet Griffin Knights are stationed in the plains to suppress the existence of the orcs and the orc-wolf cavalry, blending into themselves with the blood of the griffin, and gaining more than twice the strength of ordinary human soldiers. The strength of the orcs suppressed the entire orcs for 50 years, and the combat effectiveness can be seen from this. Just walking out of the castle, 5 red figures riding on tall armored war horses appeared in front of Rainer. They are wearing red painted plate chain composite armor, the arm armor and breastplate, as well as the golden griffin pattern on the shield, which is set against the 5-meter-long weighted lance in the right hand. Quite mighty. Dear Rainer, do you remember us? Your demeanor made us unforgettable at the beginning, so we came from a far north country to show our loyalty to you. A knight took off his helmet, revealing long brown hair, and said in a sincere tone. Rainer nodded while listening to his words. Sure enough, this reason was quite reasonable. He also took into account the factors of his body's travels, and would not appear out of thin air and cause people to doubt it. Of course, dear Sir Varas, I am very happy to accept your allegiance to me, Rainer said with a smile. However, Rainer also knew that such a powerful combat power was not for nothing. In contrast, Rainer had to pay them 2 silver coins every month. If Rainer wanted to maintain the number of Scarlet Griffin riders at 100, then he would have to pay 240 gold coins every year. Speaking of it, now the annual income of the Merland family's territory is only a dozen gold coins, and 100 Scarlet Griffin riders will have to save the Merland family for more than 10 years without eating or drinking. This shows how expensive this is. The current Morand family has only a dozen knights and more than 60 armed guards. As a baron family, although such strength is not strong, it is by no means weak. These 5 knights who do not need a benefice but only need a salary to be sent are quite timely for Rainer. After all, even the Merland family has few villages that can be divided. These 5 Scarlet Griffin Knights the arrival of has greatly increased the strength of the family. In Lena's view, these 5 knights are the most affordable thing in the whole rookie package. In Reiner's view, these 5 Scarlet Griffin knights, who wore such sophisticated armor and were capable of fighting against dozens of infantrymen of this era, had no problem. "Oh, my dear nephew, who are they? Looks like a group of distinguished people. Are you friends of people when you traveled outside?" Rainer's uncle Sir Cord interrogated came out of the castle. He was afraid of this. The territory passed by the outsiders to the brothers and nephews is threatened. With his eyesight, he can tell from the opponent's rare height, strong physique, and extraordinary aura that this is definitely a group of powerful knights. This can be easily seen from the opponent's equipment. Cod doesn't doubt the opponent's combat effectiveness. What leads him to doubt is whether the opponent will be wrong. Although the opponent has only 5 people, the combat power generated by these 5 people is not small. If the opponent has other minds, it will definitely be a fatal blow to the baronial. Therefore, the traditional knight of Sir Cod is for these visitors. Appears very alert. "Yes, sir. We met Lord Lenner when he travelled to the Cold Forest. We originally belonged to the Scarlet Griffin Knights. We attacked the Aber barbarian in the snowy field. It is a terrible tribe. Our ancestors have set up camps for avoiding the encirclement and suppression of the usurpers Sud-Okings since 400 years ago, while the Abol people often attack us. We have a wealth of land and excellent equipment. After hundreds of years of development we already have tens of thousands of people, they are eyeing everything we have, and we and each other have erupted one after another. Although Sir Varas is very humble to Rainer, they do not respect people other than his lord. There is incomparable pride in these words, and he has suppressed the orcs in another world for 50 years. What a proud record! Even if they can't tell the truth when they come to this world, they can't hide the pride from their hearts. They are tall and strong, and even extremely crude weapons can exert great power in their hands. In an enemy ambush, our territory was breached, and the knights in our army were almost wiped out. And at this moment, Lord Rainer led his attendants to assault the enemy's center, killing the other chief, and then we were saved. Compared with before, what he said is much more sincere. After all, he is his lord, and he still wants to save face. Although we were still defeated by the Aber due to insufficient supplementation, we could not forget the heroic appearance of Lord Lena, so after the collapse of the knights, we immediately went south and found Lord Lena to join us. Sir Valas said proudly to Sir Cod. The other 4 Scarlet Griffin riders also raised their helmets slightly, and the blood-red feathers on them were gently swaying with the breeze. Cord turned his gaze to Rainer again, he nodded to his father and said, "Yes, my dear uncle, we did meet that way before." Immediately afterwards, Rainer turned to the knights and said regretfully, "I didn't expect that this situation would happen again not long after we were separated." "Did your people die in that war?" Rainer asked. "No, we were defeated. Many people were separated from their comrades. According to my estimation, at least 400 to 500 people escaped the camp safely and wandered around. It's really a shame that the heroic knights who gathered together for the sake of the Holy Father will encounter such a thing, so please feel relieved to be loyal under my command. I will guarantee your safety and treatment." After speaking, all the 5 knights dismounted, took off their helmets and knelt on one knee, raised the hands of the long sword worn on the waist, and said to Rainer, "Lord, please accept our loyalty. What your long sword refers to the position is the direction of our charge. We are willing to drain the last drop of blood for you, and we are willing to give our heart for you." "Very good." Rainer nodded, and then solemnly said, "Since you and your family are willing to be loyal to me and my family, then my descendants and my descendants will certainly treat you and your family well, and I accept your oath. I will protect your interests and rights, and at the same time you must be loyal to me. Jin swears in front of the Holy Father that we will use our lives to safeguard all your interests, your dignity, and the interests of your children and grandchildren." After the oath was taken, Rainer helped the 5 of them up one by one, and after consulting the advice of Baron Cod, they placed them in the castle. Although the Moreland family's castle is not big, UU reading www.uugonshu.com is only a relatively low stone castle, but it is quite comparable to the fortifications called castles made of mud and wood. Superior. What's more, there are not only soldiers in the castle, but also some male servants, maids, and cooks. In addition to preparing some rooms to entertain their guests, there are enough rooms in the castle to accommodate the extras. 5 people. In the past few days, almost all the families connected with the Morland family have learned that the eldest son of the Morland family has returned from the journey. Like the Middle Ages known to Reiner's previous life, the inheritance system here is absolute eldest son inheritance. Therefore, Rainer had just returned to the territory from his travels, and he inherited the baronial title of his father who had never met. Just as Rainer was practicing swordsmanship in the martial arts arena, a guard suddenly came to him and said, "My Lord Baron, there is an outsider who claims to be a knight of Count Redmarat. I hope to see you. As far as you say, there is a very important thing." Earl Redmarat. Lena raised his brows slightly. The nearby aristocratic lineages are listed in the illustrations of the Morland family, and Lena hasn't seen this person from the illustrations in the map these days. Name, obviously this is a foreign nobleman. What is he looking for me for? Rainer thought a little bit in his heart. There is no intersection between the two sides, and he believes in doing nothing. He subconsciously feels that something is wrong if he commits crimes or steals. In addition, he has just arrived in the territory and has not fully grasped all the rights of the territory, so he is very cautious now, but in order to understand the other party's intentions, he still said to the guard, "Then let him in, take him." "My study," said, he put on the uniform that was draped next to him, put down the wooden sword in his hand and walked to his study. The castle of the Merland family is a small stone castle with an outer wall of more than 3 meters high. Soldiers can stand on it to attack the enemy outside. There are 2 earth and wooden arrow towers about 5 meters on both sides, where archers can also shoot at enemies outside the city. Rainer sat on a chair in the library and flipped through a night novel. After a while, there was a knock on the door. "My Lord Baron, the Earl's messenger is here." "Come in." Rainer said. The door of the study was opened, and after the guard saluted, he closed the door and guarded outside. "I saw a knight who was wearing a slightly dilapidated armor and a bandage on his shoulders came over." His embarrassed appearance made Rainer very strange. What happened to the envoy of the Viscount? Dear messenger, I don't know what happened to make you like this," Rainer asked. "Dear Lord Baron." The other party looked painfully and said, "Actually, I should have given my life for the safety of my lord, but I had to do it. I shamefully escaped, but I just hope my master can be saved." "What happened? Speak slowly." The memory in his mind made Rainer accept everything in this world without difficulty. At the same time, his life and speech are very similar to his predecessor. "My lord, please save my master. This may be a group of criminals in your territory. Only you can ask for help. If it weren't for my master to attend the banquet of Viscount Mora, it wouldn't be the case." He speaks a little incoherently, but the overall meaning is still clear. Rainer groaned, then said to the guard outside, "Go and call Sir Cod over, I have something to discuss with him." After a while, Sir Cod came to the study, and when he saw the embarrassed knight, he cast a questioning look at Rainer. After explained, Sir Cod said angrily, "Damn it! This must have been done by the Red Shorty. They have 40 people, about 40 people. Their equipment is very poor, but my master is surrounded by only 6 knights including me and a few guards. They launched a sneak attack on us, and we didn't wear armor. Their shooting caused us a heavy loss, only I found a warhorse where I escaped." What he said this time was much clearer, allowing Rainer to know the opponent's strength clearly. Seeing the 2 men's puzzled gaze, Sir Cod explained, "There has been a nasty band of robbers in the territory in the last 2 years. They seem to have come here from other areas. Looting or rake, resulting in a lot of less income in the territory, although I tried to mobilize the army to wipe them out several times, they got into the forest every time and escaped." After finishing speaking, Sir Cod said more resentfully, "And your previous coma was caused by these damned guys. They saw that there were only 2 defenders around you, so they caught your attention and caused your head to be caught. The stone was hit in a coma. Fortunately, I had already received the news that you were coming back. I led a few knights to greet you, so you were spared." "So that's the case." Raynor suddenly realized that he was still curious about the reason for his coma, and now he finally learned from Sir Cod that there are such a group of criminals in his own territory. But Raynor noticed at this moment, after listening to these words, a hidden smile flashed in the eyes of the Earl's messenger. It's not expensive and he didn't think much about it. He just thought that the other party felt happy that the owner was saved. 40 people. Raynor squinted his eyes and muttered in his heart. These forces are not very difficult for him. Among other things, Raynor's greatest reliance is the 5 Scarlet Griffin riders as a system. One of the top arms among them, as long as Raynor is given 200 Scarlet Griffin knights, he even dared to attack the 10,000 army. In fact, Raynor has reason to believe that the Scarlet Griffin rider can harmlessly reduce annihilation. After all, the armor on their body has surpassed the times, and the plate chain composite armor is definitely not capable of being broken by bandits with inferior iron weapons. Ding! Mission release: suppress the lawless elements in the territory. As the master of this territory, you must never allow situations in your territory that you cannot grasp, and destroy them. Task reward: 2 junior blacksmiths, exquisite recurve bow times 15. Looking at the system template that appeared in front of him, Raynor smiled slightly. Sure enough, although his system is very low level, he still has the ability to post tasks. It may be because of the first mission, so this time the reward is very rich. Not to mention the 15 exquisite recurve bows, the 2 junior blacksmiths alone satisfied Raynor. The northern border of the empire itself is rich in iron ore. There are countless large and small iron ore branches here. There are as many as 5 large iron ore mines established and mined by the royal family for a long time. There is a small iron ore mine, and a dozen miners are digging it every day, and then they are smelted in a unified manner. This is also the reason why even the ordinary guards of the Morand family can mix armor with leather armor and chain armor. The 2 junior blacksmiths have very good attributes. Raynor has browsed many things in the system from the beginning. A junior blacksmith even needs 10 points of merit to be able to redeem. This is already half the price of the Scarlet Griffin rider. After all, this is a technical type of work, and it is reasonable to have such a high price. A junior blacksmith can produce 5 high-quality long swords or 15 spearheads every day. As for the full-body chain armor, 1 set can be made every 10 days. This is a very good speed. Now the 4 blacksmiths of the Morland family can even make a full-body chain armor for more than 20 days. Looking at these rewards, Raynor's determination was strengthened. Immediately, he said to the other party, "Don't worry, I will not stand by. I believe that any conscientious noble person will not let a noble person be humiliated by lowly lawbreakers." Thank you so much, Lord Baron. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com, my master's safety depends on you. Raynor led the escaped knight out of the hall and rushed to the center of the castle. After the order for the assembly of the army was issued, everyone completed the assembly the next morning. At this time, in the center of the castle, the soldiers had gathered together. 60 armed guards wearing leather chain and composite armor with 2.5 meters and 5 spears and 20 archers holding hunting bows gathered together. In addition, there were 11 knights riding on war horses. Those knights in their benefice also rode their own horses to reach Fort Morand within 2 hours. Each of them is wearing a foraying buckle full-body chain armor, especially a scaled vest on the torso, which greatly strengthens their protective ability. After all, there is iron in the Morand family's territory. Mine, the matter of enhancing equipment for his knights is very happy for any nobleman. Besides, it is the Scarlet Griffin rider wearing mighty armor. Their formation is so neat, even if there are only 5 people, they look like an army. All the soldiers knew that these 5 knights, who wore extremely sophisticated armor and looked rather powerful, belonged to Lord Rainer, so they looked very respectful. Rainer took a look at the army in front of him, then looked at the Scarlet Griffin rider. His face was obviously satisfied. He said loudly in the tone of the people of this era, "Soldiers! Criminals are on our territory. Rampage! The majesty of the Morland family has been provoked, and another noble earl was taken away by them. Now, it's time for us to clean up the garbage. Destroy them. Soldiers can get 40% of the spoils. Now, let me go." After Rainer's words, the soldiers began to cheer loudly. In this era, soldiers don't have any idea of being loyal to their masters. Became the army of the Morland family completely because their physical fitness is fairly good, and they were selected by the Morland family, and this profession is just a way for them to fill their stomachs. Rainer has no doubt that if someone buys them with a lot of money, then they will definitely abandon the original owner and throw into the embrace of the new owner without hesitation. There is nothing wrong with this. Under the restrictions of the times, most armies and soldiers are like this. Rainer knows this too well, so he said that just now. The army of dozens of people does not seem to be very large. Rainer rides on the back of a group of high war horses. This is the war horse included in the System Novice gift pack. A red iris lion banner was held by a knight, which showed the identity of this army. Occasionally, a few farmers in groups were inspecting the farmland along the way. When they saw the Morande or family's army traveling, they respectfully took off the felt hats on their heads. Although they don't know why Lord Baron's army appeared here, this does not prevent them from being in awe of this army from the bottom of their hearts. Rainer was walking on the road. He looked at how the attendant behind him felt something was wrong. That figure was quite familiar to himself. "Wind." Rainer's surprised but slightly angry voice sounded, "I think you should explain to me why you are here?" "A conscripted army." He rolled over and got off his horse and came to Wenda, looking at him sternly. As the saying goes, the eldest brother is like a father. Although there is no such saying in this world, Wenda is also quite in awe of his brother. Looking at Lena's eyes, Wenda hurriedly explained nervously, brother, I am 13 years old, and many soldiers are not my opponents. I can definitely make contributions on the battlefield. You, don't send me away. Go back." Looking at the stubborn brother in front of him, Rainer is also quite helpless, but he also understands that every boy at this age will have similar ideas, thinking that he has grown up and wants to do something to prove himself. He could only sigh and said, "I don't need to send you back, but you must stay by my side. You are too young to be the age to kill the enemy." "Great. Thank you, brother," Wenda said happily. For him, it is good to experience it once on the battlefield. He doesn't expect too much. The territory of the Merland family was not large in Lena's previous life, but it was not small for this army consisting mostly of infantry. Walked for more than 2 hours, they have not yet reached the place where the Viscount was captured. "It's not here yet, dear sir. We are about to leave the territory of the Morland family," Rainer said to the knight who was responsible for guiding the way around him. "I'm going to be here soon. The place ahead is where my master was captured. Maybe they have escaped somewhere, but I believe you will wipe them all out, my lord." Rainer can only nod his head. Now he has to send his arrow on the string. Just like that, the team continued to advance slowly. Just when Rainer was wondering why there was no sign of fighting yet, a dozen arrows flew out of the dense bushes suddenly. A few screams came out. 4 or 5 soldiers were injured in this shooting. Although they were all wearing armors, there were parts that could not be protected. Rainer reacted instantly, grabbing Wend who was still in chaos, dismounting and blocking him behind him, and then shielding his body with a shield. Enemy attack. Ready to fight. Several knights reacted instantly, yelling in full, and at the same time shouting to the soldiers. A burst of arrows caused a short-term riot in the Merlin family soldiers, but they were worthy of the veterans of the Dark Ages, and soon recovered from the riots, holding the shields in their hands tightly in front of them. Several soldiers formed a defensive formation with each other, alerting the surroundings to shoot arrows again. Immediately afterwards, it was not the sound of arrows, but a group of disheveled militants. They were dressed in animal skins or linen. Some people even rushed towards the soldiers naked with wooden mallets in their hands. They seem to have a large number of people, and their faces are densely packed. According to Reiner's estimation, there are more than 100 people. The scene suddenly became more chaotic. The soldiers clenched their spears and shields, and were ready to prepare for the next battle. "Gather me!" Rainer yelled loudly. Now the soldiers are not very close together, it is very likely that they will face the end of being destroyed one by the enemy. Therefore, he gave the order for this assembly. The enemy ran quickly in the direction of Rainer, and their archers were also running and shooting with bows, providing cover for the robbers in front. "Archer! Fight back!" Rainer waved the long sword in his hand and gave his second order under the cover of 5 Scarlet Griffin riders. At this time, the soldiers had almost completed the array. They flocked to Lena to form a circular array for external defense, while the archers opened their bowstrings inside the circular array. "Shoot!" Rainer shouted loudly. There was a neat sound of breaking through the air, and the archers of the Moreland family immediately poured out the arrows in their hands. Unlike the robbers, the Merlin family's bows and arrows are all selected from legal hunters in the territory, and after a period of training, their shooting ability far exceeds that of the opponent's wild way. In this burst of shooting, the opponent fell down 7 or 8 people in an instant. This was because the enemy was moving at a high speed and the formation was sparse. Otherwise, at least 10 people can be placed in this round of shooting. The soldiers stay on the spot, temporarily under the command of Captain Balluff. "The knights gather!" Rainer yelled again, and then all the knights gathered behind him, 11 Moreland family knights, and 5 Scarlet Griffin knights. And Rainer also suddenly discovered at this time that the knight who hadn't shown his way before disappeared without knowing when. Rainer realized that he was deceived by the other party and fell into a trap. But up to now, the Moreland family's army has not fallen into the wind. The tactics of ambush are based on being prepared to fight or not, but because the Merlin family's territory is not large, the troops did not put weapons and armor on the carriage to lighten the burden when they marched. Therefore, it can be said that the Moreland family's army is fully prepared. You read www.yuyuganshu.com, and the other party missed the best opportunity and did not rush out immediately after shooting, which gave the troops time to react. This can be said to be an encounter and not an ambush. 5 Scarlet Griffin knights followed Rainer, followed by the 11 knights of the Moreland family. The horse under Redner's crotch seemed to feel the master's mood, and it sounded its nose and began to kick the horse's hoof. "Prepare to rush out and crush the enemy's bones." "For the Moreland family! Charge!" Rainer yelled. The full cover helmet on his head made his voice very dull, but it expressed his determination. In the past few days, he has been training according to the memory of the original owner of the body. He is not sure whether he can exert his full strength, but as a man, how can he be afraid in this situation? Cringe! The horse started to trot like this, and raised the 3-meter-long lance, gradually tried to let go of the rein with his left hand, put the shield on his chest, and made a standard charging posture. "For the Moreland family!" The knights behind Rainer also shouted, and as the speed of the war horse increased, the sound of the horse's hoof became more and more rapid. The sound of horseshoes resounded through the entire battlefield. At this moment, these seemingly brave robbers finally thought of how they had been slaughtered by the knights. In just a moment, their morale collapsed. And at this time Rainer had not led the knights to kill a robber. "Damn it! You cowards! Cowardly prairie dogs! Whoever dares to run away, I will take out his intestines." An armored robber hacked to death an escaped robber, and shouted angrily. Lino leaned down on his horse, and the lance was pointed straight ahead. An inexplicable state appeared on his body. Although he had not been in this world for a long time, he was holding the lance in his hand as if a part of one's own body is average. The horse under the crotch also feels like an arm, and it seems to blend into one body with his own breathing. "Thank you," Rainer said softly in his own heart. Of course he knew that he couldn't produce this feeling after just a few days of practice. All these were the muscles left by the original owner of this body. Memory. 16 knights followed Lina in this way, sending out an overwhelming charge, trampling on the ground with horseshoes and rolling up a burst of dust, rendering them like a devil hiding in a demon cloud. They are like wolves entering a flock of sheep. After they stabbed the lance in their hands into the body of an enemy, they began to hack and kill wantonly, causing blood to be sprayed everywhere, and the blood blossoms bloomed on the ground, like the same flower. A planted flower is generally very delicate and beautiful, but hidden in this beauty is the savage slaughter and the loss of life one by one. The group of robbers who usually look like wolves and tigers are like little white rabbits that are powerless at this moment. They are chased and killed by the knights at will. Although their movements are weak, the blood spurts out very powerfully, spouting blood like countless small fountains. The powerful fighting power of the Scarlet Griffin riders has not been fully reflected. When attacking such a fragile enemy, neither the knights of the Merlin family nor the Scarlet Griffin riders felt any difficulty. However, their dazzling performance also made other knights see in their eyes. The clean and unbridled chopping and their brutal actions also made them understand that the opponent is by no means ordinary. The infantry also moved at this moment. Seeing that the knight had already destroyed the morale of the enemy, they also took their spears, and started chasing the enemy like hunters chasing the weakest prey. Little Wenda also wanted to take up a long sword to fight the enemy, but was stopped by the two followers around him. Rainer had given them an order before, asking them to watch Wend and not allow him to participate in the battle. Rainer also found the robber who looked like a leader before, and he immediately turned his horse's head and rushed towards him. The facts told him that this matter was definitely not as simple as imagined. When the bandit leader saw a dozen knights rushing towards him, he was stunned. Even as the bandit leader, he had never faced such a terrible offensive. As the leader of a bandit, he was just an ordinary serf before. Such a terrifying attack was not something they could bear. The battle soon ended. Under the attack of the knights, this group of bandits, who could be called mobs, suddenly collapsed, and the infantry also took advantage of this time to start strangling the bandits, and almost all of them were killed. Died, except for a small number of people who fled. A piece of corpses lay on the ground. All these were robbers killed by knights and infantry. Of course, there were also some deaths due to cannibalism. Rainer didn't kill the bandit leader. There was another secret in this matter. The knight who led them disappeared inexplicably and was ambushed. This was obviously because the enemy had prepared in advance. Among the dozen knights, not even one was injured. They just said that the bandit leader was surrounded by bandits. Lina was riding on horseback, his fully sealed helmet showing only 2 eyes. He coldly said to the bandit leader, "Tell me, where is Count Redmara?" "My lord, the Count Redmara is here, in our cottage." The bandit leader looked at Lina timidly and said, "Are you sure you didn't lie to me?" Rainer asked, raising the volume. "I swear, my lord, I swear in the name of the Father, I will never deceive you." "That's the best. If you lie to me, I will take out your intestines and feed the dog." He took off his helmet and stared at the opponent sharply. At this time, the prompt for the system to complete the task finally sounded. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the task, and rewards, exquisite recurve bow times 15, junior blacksmith times 2. Ding! Trigger a hidden mission, investigate the black hand behind the scenes. Task reward, junior cavalry soul, increase the combat effectiveness and attributes of the cavalry under your command by 5%. Rainer knew that this matter was definitely not that simple. How could an ordinary robber have so many manpower and the courage to ambush the noble's regular army? This is obviously someone instigated behind the scenes. What makes Rainer even more happy is that the rewards for this mission are also quite generous. The military spirit is a special function of the system for the host. The junior cavalry spirit can bring 5% of the cavalry under his command. The bonus. This 5% is an increase in all aspects: morale, technology, attributes, endurance, and even the impact of the horse will be strengthened by 5%. The army spirits of infantry and archers also have their own strengthening directions, and the highest rank army spirit can even increase the army by 30%. In this way, the wounded soldiers were left in place by Lena, leaving some soldiers to guard them. He continued to take a large group of troops to the cottage to find the kidnapped Earl of Redmara. In fact, Lena had never heard of it. The name of Count Redmara. This also shows that the Earl of Redmara is obviously not the Lord of the Northern Territory, but for the prestige of the Merlin family, it is necessary to rescue a nobleman. Too majestic. Under the protection of the attendants, Wendell looked at his brother in admiration, and he was quite envious of all this in his heart. In this way, the group of people cleaned the battlefield and collected the trophies, then watched the bandit leader walk towards their hiding place. "This is where you hide?" Lena asked, turning his head to the bandit leader who was walking beside his horse with his hands tied. "Yes, my lord, we have been hiding here for 2 years." The bandit leader replied tremblingly. "This is a very hidden place, hidden in the forest southwest of the Merlin family, relying on the dense forest to hide its position. In addition, they are familiar with the terrain. Every time the Morin family comes to encircle and suppress, they can escape the raids by the army as long as they hide. It's better not to play any tricks, you are completely in my hands," Rainer said in a threatening tone, and the knights next to him were also staring at each other, which made the bandit leader very scared. "Please rest assured, my lord, I will never conceal anything. Viscount Redmara is inside." Due to the dense woods in the forest, the knights had to dismount their horses and move forward, but even if they left their horses, the combat power and equipment they had trained since childhood ensured Rainer's absolute safety here. What's more, Rainer completely took over the body of his predecessor, and his combat skills were gradually digested, and he believed that he would soon be able to recover his powerful combat effectiveness. "You guard here first, the knights follow me in and have a look." Rainer turned around and said. Walked into the cave. This is a very narrow cave, which can almost only be used by one person. In some places, it even requires knights to bend over to pass. The torches in their hands flickered in the cave. After walking for about 3 or 4 minutes, the cave suddenly became spacious. A nobleman who looked luxurious but embarrassed was sitting on the ground with his hands tied behind his back. Seeing someone coming, he immediately began to struggle, and there was a dull sound from his blocked mouth. His eyes were full of longing. He really didn't want to stay in this ghost place anymore. As a noble earl, when did he ever feel so embarrassed? The cave is extremely dim, and only torches can provide a faint light, so as not to make people blind in the cave. Rainer looked at the embarrassed Count Redmara in front of him. He saw that he was about 20 years old and had messy hazel hair. He looked at Lena with eyes full of longing and hope. He walked in front of the opponent, took out the linen cloth in his mouth that he didn't know what he had wiped, and then began to loosen the rope on Viscount Redmara. "Thank you, my dear fellow noble, if it weren't for you, I might still be abused at the hands of those lowly robbers." Count Redmara stood up from the ground, sorted out the slightly broken aristocratic costume, and said to Rainer. "You are polite, as a nobleman, I can't just watch another nobleman being humiliated. This is what I should do." Rainer quickly adapted to the change in his identity, and relied on the memory of his predecessor. In this way, he turned himself into an out-and-out nobleman. "I haven't asked your honorable name yet?" "I must always remember the name of my benefactor." "Lena Morland, I am the master of this territory, the owner of Fort Merland. A man who claimed to be your knight came to my castle and told me about this. That's why you can see me here. That must be the Carl. He betrayed me. And he actually did such a thing. As soon as Count Redmara heard the news, he began to yell at him, apparently extremely angry about the incident. Liner looked at the opponent's reaction and moved in his heart. Is the task of finding out the black hand behind the scenes completed? He suppressed the gratification in his heart, and asked with concern, "What's the matter?" "Which Sir Carl disappeared after I defeated the enemy. What did he do?" "It's him. If it weren't for him to collude with robbers, how could I be ambushed and arrested by this mob? At that time, we were completely unprepared. 3 of my knights were unarmed and killed by the enemy, and he led the rebels. We launched an attack." Rainer shook his head regretfully after hearing this, and said, "That's really a shame, but as a knight who swore an oath to you, why did you suddenly betray you at this time?" "They must have done it," Count Redmara said angrily. "Who?" Rainer asked again. Now he is not far from getting the spirit of the cavalry. Count Redmara hesitated, and then said, "It is the group of ambitious lords. Since the Emperor of the Empire has unfortunately fallen from the horse 3 years ago to sweep the nomads, his health has been extremely poor. In the last 2 years, only lingering on the sickbed, some of the great lords who surrendered in the heyday of your majesty have regained their ambitions, vainly attempting to subvert the rule of the Merland family, or crack the earth to establish a king, or want to set up their own dynasty, or just want to be and gain benefits from this turmoil." Hearing what Count Redmara said, Rainer was a little surprised. He had known for a long time that the Merland family was a distant relative of the current royal family, but he did not know the fact that the royal family was now in a precarious manner. But this is also understandable. It is also difficult for them to know the political situation of the whole country, let alone the remote northern border of the empire. Count Redmara went on to say, "And I, Bolus Redmara, is a loyal supporter of the Merland royal family. Under the leadership of the royal family, we resolutely confronted those who wished to divide the empire and replace the royal family. Lord. And they naturally regard us as thorns in the flesh. Many royal loyalists have been persecuted by them. I am not the first and will never be the last. By the way, I hear your surname is Morand. Do you have anything to do with the royal family?" Earl Redmara only realized the problem with Rainer's surname and asked instead. "Ah, yes," Lena said with a smile, "my great-grandfather was a prince of the royal family, but because he was not taken seriously, he was assigned here to be a baron." "Oh. So that's it. So you are still a member of the royal family?" Count Redmara suddenly realized, pondered for a moment and then said, "So, don't you have any thoughts about the situation of the royal family at this time?" Liner thought for a while, and also understood what the other party meant. The other party just wanted to participate in this dispute by himself, but he didn't have any thoughts about it. After all, although he has crossed, and there is still a system in it, he is still very clear about his position. A little baron, under such circumstances, if he is involved with his own strength, he will definitely be eaten by others. There is no scum left. Aha, what can I think of? My territory is so poor, and this winter I have to guard against the invasion of the Clads. Hey, this is the sorrow of the little lord, it is incomprehensible for a nobleman like your lord." Rainer wanted to divert the subject and declined. Unexpectedly, Count Redmara didn't care, and said meaningfully, "Who knows? But if you can integrate the entire northern territory, you may get even greater benefits in this dispute." After finishing speaking, Count Redmara did not wait for Rainer's reply. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com said to him, "But thank you for your rescue, I will give you the reward you deserve." He took out a ring from his pocket inside his clothes and handed it to Liner and said, "If you change your mind, or if you have troubles that are difficult to solve, you can write to me and use this ring to seal it with lacquer. I will understand what you mean." Rainer hesitated for a while, and still took the ring. Although he didn't want to be in touch with the current chaos, if he could get acquainted with a high-ranking earl, the advantages would outweigh the disadvantages. In this way, Rainer found some other captive knights and attendants in this cave, but what left Rainer never understood was what made the enemy an inland earl lead such a weak force for him. Came to the north where the birds don't shit, but if the other party doesn't say anything, Rainer can't ask too much. When the last person was released, an electronic voice suddenly appeared in Lena's mind. Congratulations, Lord Baron, for completing the task. Investigate the Black Hand behind the scenes, and get rewards. The junior cavalry spirit, swift as the wind. 5. Listening to the system's prompt tone, Rainer completely discarded the worries in his mind. Anyway, he has a huge golden finger, the system, what else can he worry about? After ordering the soldiers to search all the property in the cave, Rainer gave the order to return. Your Excellency, how about staying in my castle for some time? I am very sorry that you have encountered such a thing in my territory. I will hold a grand banquet for you. Liner said. Forget it. Count Redmara refused. The form of the empire is very serious now. I must return to the territory as soon as possible to prepare. Forgive me for not being able to go to the banquet. After rescued the Earl of Redmara, he hurriedly left here with his subordinates, and Erliner also found property worth about 10 gold coins from the robber's cave. Don't look at the value of only 10 gold coins. You must know that 10 gold coins are the number of expenditures for half a year by the Molland family in the city of OK. This group of robbers can only gain such wealth for several years. It is already very difficult. And what makes Lena even more happy is that he has won 75 merits in this battle, which means that if he wants to, he can exchange 3 Scarlet Griffin Knights from the system again. However, Liner still tends to store his merits in case of emergency. In the next time, Rainer focused all his energy on controlling the territory and the things of the territory. He was so content with the decadent life of the feudal aristocracy, completely betraying his own class, and forgetting the excellent education he received under the red flag. The sun hung high, shining into the room from the window, and 2 beautiful maids stood in the room, waiting for the master to wake up, holding the tub for washing and the soft and delicate linen towels. Rainer snorted unconsciously, opened his eyes slowly, looked at the 2 maids standing next to him, and slowly sat up. Seeing this, the 2 maids hurried forward to serve. One took a wet towel from the warm water and gently wiped Lena's face, while the other took the clothes Lena needed to wear in his hand and waited for help. He wears. It's a decadent life. After enjoying the maid's service, Lena sighed in his heart. The maid holding the towel backed away, and another maid holding the clothes came forward to put on Lena. When he completely lifted his quilt, the physical condition caused by the mourning inevitably appeared in front of the little maid. But even so, the 2 of them still serve Liner meticulously, even though their blushing cheeks speak for themselves. Looking at the 2 delicate girls in front of him, his heart couldn't help but sway. As a 5 good young man in the new century, he certainly has no close and beautiful intimacy with the opposite sex. Although he desires, but his own conditions are completely unachievable, but in this world, he is also a member of the aristocratic master. As a big landlord under the feudal system, what is it to have 2 maids? Of course, these 2 lovely little maids had already been taken into the room by him. After one bite on their cheeks, he walked out of the room refreshedly. It was early autumn at this time, and the weather had begun to turn slightly colder, especially in the Morandberg area, which was located in the north. The seeds sown in the spring have matured at this time. The golden wheat rustles under the blow of the autumn wind. One by one serfs and a few free people are harvesting their own food in the farmland. A serf is different from a free man. The serf is the lord, that is, the property of Lena, and the tax that needs to be paid accounts for 70% to 80%. But the free people are different. They only need to pay 20% to 30% of their income. The favorable living conditions also make their bodies stronger. For example, the army under Rainer has more free people. Walked into the restaurant, the cooked broth and white bread with fair taste were placed on the table. Besides some fruits, the table was decorated a lot more beautifully. This white bread is not the other white bread. It is different from the soft, sweet, and sour bread filled with the fragrance of wheat in the impression of Reiner. It is not so much bread, as it is a kind of unleavened flour-baked flour cake. Not only does not have a soft and sweet taste, it is rather dry and hard. It chews a bit similar to the pasta cakes that Leonard ate in the countryside in his previous life. That's it, it's still a rare luxury and delicacy in this era. Ordinary free people still eat black bread. As for serfs, even low-quality black bread mixed with sawdust or sand is hard to eat. Is mostly cheap and very poor-tasting wild oats, mixed with bitter weeds, boiled into a pot of oatmeal with a weird taste. This is also the main culprit for the short stature of the leaders under Liner's rule. Liner wanted to improve this situation very much. He became a lord and won the support of the people, not to mention that he could have a group of tall and strong people. The source of troops is also very worthwhile. But this is not a day's work after all, it will take years or even decades to really improve. In addition to Rainer, there are Rainer's uncle Sir Cod, and his eldest son, a senior trainee knight, Rainer's cousin Lumbar. Rainer's younger brother Wend, Rainer's younger sister Fiona, and Rainer's nominal mother, Mrs. Morland. 2 guards wearing robes, leather and chain armor, holding short spears and wearing long swords guarded the door. The cook in the castle and 2 cooks stood by the dining table. The clerk Basil in the castle stood respectfully next to the wooden seat on the long wooden table. This was Reiner's exclusive position, and it was also the exclusive position of his father. Several maids were also standing by the dining table, respectfully waiting for the family to dine. The 2 guards respectfully saluted Liner. He walked through the door and sat on the table that belonged to him. As this was just a meal between ordinary family members, everyone did not agree. He didn't stand up and salute, just said hello. During the meal, Rainer asked Sir Cod casually, "Dear uncle, has anything happened on the territory recently?" Rainer hasn't traveled for a long time, he hasn't established a completely firm rule over the territory, and he is not very informed for the news. He hasn't cultivated his own intelligence organization. He has to acquire the status of the territory from all aspects, but in the future, he will also vigorously cultivate a power that is completely loyal to him. He always has a sense of distrust of the power left by this physical father. Nothing happened, everything in the territory is calm. Sir Cod said. On the same day, Rainer began to count the state of the territory in his study. According to statistics so far, the total number of serfs and freemen in the Morenberg area totaled more than 2,100 people. Of course, this does not include a fugitive slave in order to avoid paying taxes. The farmland belonging to the Merland family is about 15,000 acres. In fact, the entire Fort Merland has almost 25,000 acres of land. The other 5,000 acres are allocated to the knights. Owned by the Fei village, as a branch of the royal family that has been entrusted here in the past 100 years, the territory of the Merland family is still relatively concentrated. In addition, there are 120 sheep, 10 cattle, 15 farm horses, 7 mills, 20 horses, and 5 war horses. They consume more food every day than Lena's army. Many, but because their output is also huge, it is quite cost-effective. After counting these, Rainer finally has a clear understanding of his property. And the days are passing by, and winter is gradually coming. Rainer lay in the room, the flames in the fireplace flying up and down, swallowing the wood for them to burn, and making crackling noises from time to time, but for people of this age, this is a warm sound. The system, a monthly lottery draw. Liner said to the system in his heart that the system will automatically issue a lottery chance once a month, which is called a monthly lottery. There are many prizes to be drawn, but in Liner's view, most of them are useless things. In the past 3 months, the best thing he has drawn is only worth 10 points of merit. Exquisite hand is only half a sword. But in line with the idea of not drawing nothing, Reiner still conducts a lottery draw every month, in case the character breaks out and wins a good thing. Yes, Lord Baron, the monthly lottery starts. Reiner stared at the lottery turntable in front of him. Even though he disappointed him again and again, he still had the hope of winning something good. Congratulations on your selection of the heroic role. Logan, the spy leader of the Baal Empire stationed in Reza, once helped the Baal Empire steal intelligence and successfully defeated the enemy's superior forces. Loyalty, 95, Character, Cruelty, Comprehensive Evaluation, 4 stars, Weather now. Lino looked ecstatically at the system interface in front of him. The huge surprise made him almost jumped up with excitement. This kind of 4-star character is definitely something you can meet and never ask for. In the system wall, each hero character is valuable, even the cheapest 1-star hero has thousands of merit points. Not to mention such 4-star heroes who have planned famous events. Although I don't know what the Baal Empire is, how can someone who can serve as a regional spy leader in a country be a general generation? These days, Reiner has always had a feeling of anxiety, perhaps because of being in a foreign land. He always has a feeling of not being able to grasp the overall situation. Although the situation of other nobles is similar to that of Reiner, he just feels disturbed. But now it's okay. With this spy leader, he is finally able to be stable. Having such a heroic character does not need to be a waste. It is very necessary for him to form a spy or an intelligence organization. There must be a Jinyue monitoring territory. Appear immediately. Reiner said. Yes, Lord Baron, Logan has appeared outside your castle, please receive it in time. The mechanical and electronic sound of the system sounded. Reiner opened the door of the room and said to the guard at the door, there is a person waiting outside the castle, you go and bring him to me. Although the guard was curious about Reiner's order, he had to execute it. Soon, Logan appeared in front of Reiner. May you sweep all enemies and be invincible, my dear great master, your humblest servant Logan bless you. Logan exaggerated. Made Lena a little embarrassed. He is just a little baron now, and he is not worthy of Logan's praise. Very good, Logan, from today you will be my spy chief and help me build a strong spy intelligence organization, but unfortunately, my finances are a bit tight now, so you need to temporarily have no financial support. Help me control my territory under the circumstances. Reiner felt a little embarrassed when he said this. He was simply incarnate as the unscrupulous bosses in the previous life, who wanted the horse to run fast but did not feed the horse. But there is no way. Reiner's current financial situation is indeed not optimistic. Although the taxes on the territory have been collected, they are only physical objects. Fortunately, the knights under his own do not need a salary, but have the Merland family. Endowed beloved. But the ordinary soldiers and the livestock in the castle all need food to feed, especially the war horses in the castle, they need high-quality soybeans, and occasionally they need to be mixed with meat and eggs to ensure their strength. In addition to the occasional banquets, the Morand family's finances are still a bit tight. If it weren't for selling iron materials to the interior of the empire every year, it might have been stretched. Reiner has already realized 2 junior blacksmiths before, and has been working hard to make iron chain armor for Reiner. The chain armor is very valuable. If it is in the interior of the empire, it takes 5 gold coins to be able to do it. Buying a set, coupled with the tense situation in the empire, domestic lords are fiercely watching the royal family, and the price of iron armor is rising all the way. However, Reiner does not intend to sell the chain mail. After all, it is now winter, and the lords of the northern border of the empire have to prevent the invasion and plunder of the clad barbarian every year. The climate in the cold zone forest is extremely harsh. Although it is less than 100 kilometers away from the north, the temperature can vary by more than 10 degrees. The frigid forests that are in severe winter for half a year cannot grow crops and livestock. Therefore, whenever winter comes, the clads will go south to plunder the northern border of the empire. If the food can be plundered, the opponent will be more likely to survive the winter. If the food cannot be plundered, the casualties incurred can also reduce the vulnerable population of their tribe and save some food. In 3 months, 2 junior blacksmiths plus 2 ordinary blacksmiths in the original castle, UU reading www.uuganshu.com has woven a total of 18 sets of full-body chain armor. Reiner asked the Moreland family guards to compete, and the 18 winners were able to put on the chain armor. The Morandair family's army is fully equipped with leather armor because of its backing against the forest and the many skins of the boreal forest. With the now prepared cheeks, more than a herd of the 60 armed guards are already equipped. The iron armor. Reiner has not been idle for more than 3 months. Of course, the streamlining of the organization has to be done quickly. Reiner divided the 60 soldiers into 4 teams, each with 15 people, based on what he had learned from his previous life. The team is divided into 3 combat teams. Although the team leader and team leader have not yet been selected, they have been training in coordinated combat for 3 months. Reiner spent a lot of money on this, and spent 15 merits to purchase the junior infantry combat codes, just to exercise their cooperation and team combat capabilities, and now he has mastered a lot of combat skills and formations. But after all, the time is not long, it is only rough. If you want to master more proficiently, you need more time to train. The size of the army is still small, so you can continue to form an army alone. If the army becomes large in the future, Reiner will mix up the various arms. In order to keep their nutrition up with the amount of training, Reiner organizes archers into the mountains to hunt every day. One is to hone his shooting skills, and the other is to bring back some meat to supplement the army's nutrition. Otherwise, Lena would not be able to provide him with 3 meat meals a day. What annoyed Reiner even more was that the previous reward for the system was only 15 length exquisite recurve bows, but he had 20 archers, so Reiner spent another 20 points of merit to make up. I wonder if the system is bundling consumption. Host, Rainer Moreland age, 16 age, 16 politics, 50, full value 100, health 95 current territory building, none current reputation, none current subordinates, Wallace, Logan current title, none current army, 60 armed soldiers, 20 archers current territory, Fort Moreland current family. The Moreland family opened the system interface, and a series of attributes came into Lena's eyes. Except for the 2 extra subordinates, everything was the same as it was 3 months ago. Reiner recently took a fancy to a high-yield farm. This farm covers an area of 200 acres, which can greatly increase food production and has fixed data. Whether it is placed on barren land or fertile land, a lot of food can be harvested. However, the price of this item is still too high. Although a farm of 200 acres of land can provide for the food and drink of more than 200 people in the Lena castle, including servants, and other miscellaneous people, 100 the unit price of the meritorious service also discouraged Reiner. So he can only choose to wait. There are many types of construction products. The most expensive one that Reiner has seen so far is the 5th level military barracks. Putting ordinary soldiers in it for a year can transform it into the top of this era. The number of soldiers in the country can only convert 500 people each year, and the price is 20,000 meritorious services, a figure that Reiner can't even think of. The Scarlet Griffin Rider has been arguing with Lena's knights for 3 months, which has also improved their combat effectiveness. The setting of the Scarlet Griffin Rider in itself is a human knight group that is stuck in the plains and fused with the blood of Griffin. They have to fight with the wolf cavalry of the orcs and the terrifying strong orcs all year round. They themselves almost represent a kind of limit of mankind. Of course, there is no magical existence like orcs in the world where Reiner lives. The only opponents they can find are humans, and their fighting power can be imagined when they have fought with orcs. Reiner is mobilizing the leading people to develop arable land recently. The low productivity is simply due to insufficient equipment and too little arable land. It takes money and time to reclaim the cultivated land. The poor serfs do not have the financial resources and the right to reclaim the land. After all, they are just the personal belongings of the nobleman, Liner, legally and in fact. Different from freedmen, if freedmen want to reclaim cultivated land, they need to submit an application to Reiner and pay a certain amount of wealth in order to obtain the right to use a piece of cultivated land for a certain number of years. Because fundamentally, all the land in Fort Merland belongs to Reiner. Rainer sent out all the cattle, horses, and work horses, and used the gold coins that the system gave in the novice package to purchase many advanced farming tools, including Spanish heavy plows. According to Liner's estimation, in the winter of this year, his private arable land can increase from 1,500 acres to about 2,500 acres. For this reason, Liner paid the price of a meal for every serf who participated in the reclamation. When the spring of next year begins, it is time for Rainer to use the frigid wheat seeds obtained from the starter pack. I believe that the wheat seeds that grow specifically in frigid regions will definitely shine in the northern border. Cooking smoke curled up from the chimney. The weather in November was extremely cold, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of snow. The villagers who had worked all day in the forest were finally able to return to their homes to rest. This is a small village in Leonard's eyes, with less than 100 people, of course, from Leonard's point of view, and what they are doing is after praying in front of the fire. Only then will they begin to eat their most important meal of the day, dinner. Alan was a serf who was about 30 years old. Alan means meat in the language of the Empire. It is estimated that this name is because his parents hoped that his son can eat meat every day. He collected firewood and grass roots in the forest for a whole day today. The benevolent Baron allowed them to forage in the forest. Otherwise, the winter will undoubtedly be even more difficult. The Knight Master recently trained in the Baron's castle, and even his son was taken away with him. There are only a few knights guarding the entire village. Kneeling before the fire and praying a pious prayer to the Father, he himself added another sentence, "I hope that the rule of the Merland family can last forever." He knew very well that he had lived very well among the serfs. A pot of vegetable oatmeal soup boiled in a clay pot with a little meat on the surface. In winter when food is scarce, a serf can still eat meat. Roasting and getting angry, his two sons don't have to go hungry. Compared with the serfs in other territories, they are already very happy. He has no ambitions. He is very grateful for his life like this. He also knows that all this is brought about by the benevolent rule of the Merland family, so he prays like this. Suddenly, he heard a scream outside the door. Such things shouldn't happen in a quiet and peaceful village on weekdays. With the doubts in his heart, he opened the door and walked out. "Oh, my Holy Father! They are here again!" Alan looked at the tragedy in front of him, and couldn't help cursed. "Damn clads! You will go to hell!" said. He grabbed the dung fork next to the door and rushed up. As a serf symptom soldier who has been on the battlefield several times, reading www.uyugonshu.com can also be considered as having combat experience. The reason why he was so angry was very simple. The clads living in the boreal forests finally couldn't help it. They marched south in hunger, planning to plunder the imperial land. In front of them were 3 clad barbarians with rags wrapped in animal skins and layers of frostbite on their faces. They kicked open the door of Alan's neighbor's house and rushed in to take their food. And Alan's neighbor seemed to have been stabbed by the wooden spear in his hand. In this era, neighbors always have to warm each other, so he is so angry at this kind of thing. The 3 clades saw Alan and several other villagers rushing towards them with dung forks like wolves, and they were also panicked. Don't look at them as barbarians, but in fact it doesn't mean that they are physically strong, but because they are too poor and too low in productivity, they have not produced any civilization at all. On the contrary, their physical fitness is not even as good as the inhabitants of the empire due to low productivity. If the clads and the empires compete none, then there is a 70% chance that the empires will win. Of course, those except the barbarians in the tribe who are in charge of fighting. Therefore, these three clads, who were obviously scattered people, did not dare to confront the villagers at all. They directly took up the food bags in their hands and rushed quickly. After chasing for a period of time, they still let them run away. Damn it! The annoyed shouts of several villagers echoed in the empty snowfield, but the barbarians disappeared without a trace. When they returned to the village, the followers hurriedly arrived. It must be reported to Lord Sir, this matter must also be known to Lord Baron, perhaps the offensive of the clad barbarian is about to begin again.